Sorry, I'm changing my microphones. Well, good morning, everybody. This is a Gulf Harbour Radio, 1 minute early, but we're sitting here bright as buttons this morning. The weather is still beautiful here after 3 glorious days. We do have a red sky in the morning for Cinco de Mayo, 5th of May. So all you folk that are used to celebrating know what you can do today. But yes, it's very calm here. 2 knots, they tell me, on my machine from the northwest. There is just ever so slight movement in my plants looking outside. It's light now. 1027.1. It had dropped, but it's now steady on the bar. And we've got sort of quite a thick, well, not thick layer, but it's about 80% scattered strata Q, just not very thick, but it's there and doesn't bode well for the future. And interestingly enough, some of the boats reporting in have talked about backing winds, another adventure. Good morning, Frank. He's up there at 3-1 south and 173 east with the east 12. It's backed from the southeast at 40% cloud cover. And Mr. Troy, good morning, or buongiorno to Diego and Marina. They're at further ahead than Frank at 2733 and 174, and they've got 15 to 20 knots of wind from the southeast, but it's going east, so it is backing there. And great to hear a report from Rotuma. Thank you, Jonathan and Donna, because David was looking at where that frontal system is. Up there at Rotuma, southerly 10 knots with 75% cloud cover and a steady 1010 on the bar. So all pretty good for those folk that have left. There are some heading east. Haven't heard from Bright Angel this morning, or Tusi too. Probably Tusi is enjoying Arriva Bay now and probably searching for fuel. Anyway, good morning to everybody. Not too much by way of news updates this morning, so I'll delay that a little bit. Saturday mornings, our paper is full of stuff that's not all that interesting, to be honest. But is there anybody wanting to give a report from the islands or on their way? Please call. Well, it's all very peaceful on a Saturday morning, and just a reminder that we will not be on tomorrow morning. We take Sunday off to pursue our various hobbies, and it's going to be a little bit wet tomorrow, unfortunately, but that's the way it goes. And there was something to remind you about. Oh, that's right. My news from yesterday, I talked about this new rather stringent requirements for hulls coming into New Zealand. What sort of things that you can have on your hull and what sort you cannot. And Mike has tidied that up. When I pasted it into the forum, it came from the Ministry of Primary Industries with all sorts of asterisks and dots and other various symbols which didn't go nicely with the website. So that's all tidied up now, so you can get the fuller message as to the gooseneck barnacles that you are allowed, and that's about it on your hull when you come back to New Zealand. And they talk about pictures and paint and God knows what on the various of the downloads that they have got for your information. All right, well, going on to today's news, such as it is, and the interesting one, well, sort of interesting for you guys, but somebody has looked at sunscreens and decided that some of the components of sunscreens, particularly oxybenzone and octinoxate, which is ethyl, hexyl, methyl, cinnamate or whatever, are very, very toxic to coral life. And they have estimated that there is between 6,000 and 14,000 tons washed off swimmers and divers, etc., around coral reefs. I really can't accept that. But they also say that maybe 10% of the coral reefs are threatened by your sunscreen that you use. Well, it won't be Chameleon sunscreen, because I think most of the sunscreen that we've purchased over the years is still sitting on Chameleon. And I guess that's the case with many other people. You buy these things because you're told you have to, but then there really isn't the problem with the sun up there in the islands that there is in places like New Zealand, so they tend to sit there. So if the statistical people are looking at the purchases, they really don't get a good indication of how much is actually used. But there you have it. If you're using sunscreen around coral reefs, then you possibly could damage the coral reef life.
Which is speculation.
Which is speculation, says David. Well, scientists are into speculations these days. Not when we went through, we had to actually prove things. But these days you go in for a lot of speculation and use of figures and statistics.
To get your name in print.
To get your name in print, yes. All right, let's move on. A really, really stupid article, and it shows you that New Zealand is really becoming a nanny state. Teachers now have to have a tree climbing course if they are going to be supervising children in a playground with climbable trees. They have to study the location, shape, height and state of a tree that's in their playground so that they can do a risk assessment. Well, boy, I'll tell you what, it's just as well you've got crew out there, because if you're expecting your grandchildren to be future crew, then they possibly will not be allowed on a boat. Think of all the dangers on a boat. You'd have to do a risk assessment. Okay, something interesting. Malaysian Airlines, you know, that Flight 370 that went down and is still missing, in fact, 4 years ago, they are finding some interesting things. Not the aeroplane, but they have found a couple of sailing ships, very big ones, a brig and a bark, and we'll give an award to anyone who knows what a brig and a bark is, but I don't remember, and I don't think we've got any brigs and barks out there in the cruising fleet. But they have found a couple of sailing ships, one of each, big ones with coal on board, 2,300 kilometres southwest of Australia, so it must be in pretty snotty waters. No wonder they went down. They are, in fact, way down, 3.7 kilometres down, so they're unlikely to be particularly identified or raised to the surface. But anyway, they've found those and also a couple of trawlers. So they are finding something in their search for the Malaysian Airlines plane. And finally, I mentioned a couple of days ago the total evacuation of Ambai up there in Vanuatu. Well, Hawaii's Kilauea volcano is erupting again, and they've had to order the evacuation of 1,500 residents from that side of the Big Island. It's, for those that know Hawaii, Big Island, it's near Pahoe, P-A-H-O-E. So it's quite spectacularly blowing smoke and stuff. So there's quite a lot of volcanic activity around the place. And there was, in fact, an article in our paper yesterday about the possibility of Mount Taranaki, which I thought was dormant, but they did a risk assessment. That seems to be the words these days, risk assessment for what would happen when Mount Taranaki blows up. Okay, is there anybody with any report from the islands? It would be good to know if we're getting out. We have a couple of messages from the streaming. Good morning to David up there on Anahata and Eagles winds. Wind 2 knots from the west. Yep, that ties in with us, some scattered clouds. So, yeah, there's not much wind around New Zealand at the moment. Okay, anybody else?
Good morning from Makatai.
Well, we've got a couple there. Stand by, Diego and Tallulah Ruby. Go ahead.
Good morning, Patricia. Yeah, my position this morning is 24 degrees 41 south, 170 degrees 40 east. We have a speed over the ground of 7 knots, heading 336 through 76 knots south. 90% south cover, heading south, 2 meters level from the south, around barometer reading 1018 steady. Over.
Okay, you had a very good signal, except you faded a bit on the wind. I've got 15 from south-southeast. Did I hear correctly?
Yeah, That's between 12, 1, 2 and 1, 5. Over.
Okay, yeah, no, you've got a very good signal, and Saturday mornings we never have too much trouble hearing because obviously people are sleeping in on a Saturday and not using the power that screams past my antenna. So Tallulah Ruby up there at 2441 and 17040. I'll just give the wind 15 knots from the south-southeast. That's interesting that it's still down there. I'm just looking at, oh no, you're further to the west, aren't you? And
I have east-southeast 15.
David has east-southeast 15, so it's pretty close really. And 90% cloud cover with the occasional showers. So sounds like order's pretty good with that direction. Over.
Yeah, that's good. The wind's variable, to be honest. It's south-southeast to east-southeast. Over.
Yeah, okay. It's fluctuating around there a bit. All right. Well, have a good sail for the next day or so, and we'll talk to you on Monday.
What's the ETA?
Oh, yeah, David wants to know your ETA roughly. Over.
ETA will be Monday PM.
Monday PM.
Where's it going?
Yeah, just remind me, which port are you going into?
We're going into Port Vila.
Oh, right up to Port Vila, that's right. Okay.
East-southeast about 20.
Yeah, David thinks it'd be southeast about east-southeast about 20, and yeah, Diego and Marina are going there as well, and they are a little bit further south of you, so they'll be interested to have heard that report. I'll talk to them in a minute. Yeah, no one's going into Anisham, or did you just decide to go straight through to Port Vila? Over.
Yeah, well, we've got 3 or 4 and we'll get back to New Zealand at some time, so we just felt Port Vila was the easiest. Over.
Yeah, it is indeed. The only trouble is it's hard to get down to those ones coming back into the trades, isn't it? All right, we'll see you in Port Vila
Monday.
Later on Monday. All right, and Diego Massatroy, go ahead, Diego. Booming signal again. Over.
Yeah, good morning. Nothing special here. 600 miles to go, and we are going to Fiji to Huda Point, not to Port Vila. But anyway, I don't think there will be much difference. You know, we have east to east-southeast this morning, a little bit less wind, a little bit less comfortable, and bit less speed, unfortunately. Anyway, back to you.
Where is it?
Yeah, yeah, I forgot you're heading north there. I should have had my brain in action. Yeah, I'm not a morning person, Diego, that's the trouble. David said, remind me where he is again. He's at 2733 and 17, we'll put him at 175, near enough. So, pretty much the same conditions there, heading up to Gunda. All right, thank you for that. Is there anybody else? So we can probably fit one more in before we head off to David for the weather. Sarani, and good morning to New Caledonia. Go ahead. Not such a good signal from you this morning. I was in 5 knots from the southeast, 100% cloud cover. Well, that sounds not too bad of conditions for everybody to head off for the weekend, so I'm sure it's going to be pretty decent. I'm looking at the satellite picture on New Caledonia, and it looks pretty good. I must give Addie and Irene on Orphos an email and see whether they're back from Austria. We missed them last year with their daily report from the Isle of Pines, so it would be good to know what their movements are. All right, I'm going to pass it to David. I don't think there's anyone looking at leaving with the conditions that there are for passengers, but we'll see what he's got to say. Here's David.
Okay. That's possible. Everything's possible.
Everything's possible.
All right, good morning. And looking first at 500 millibar, our upper trough is still left leading, and its axis is pretty much over Tonga now, having drifted east just a little bit. Remember, they all have been slow moving, the troughs and the ridges at 500 millibar, not moving very fast. So this has spawned a depression at 30 and 168 west, 30 and 168 west, and this maintains our old complex low. We won't forget that one, which has shifted now way out there to 150 west. Now, these are found at about 40 south. It's a group of low centers, but they do send one noteworthy trough that goes all the way up to Samoa, actually west of Samoa, and between Samoa and the Nuas, really. Our 500 millibar ridge is over New Zealand, and that's supporting the high that we have currently, and it's pretty strong. It's about 1030 millibar, maybe 1029. It's moving off the country, and it's soon to be replaced by a depression that's south of the South Island, and we'll have a frontal band in the mid-Tasman. The development of this low is thanks to another shortwave trough at 500 millibar. Now, by roughly midnight, there's going to be a series of fronts that are going to run over New Zealand. They will be mostly over the South Island this evening, and the North Island tops it on Sunday morning actually, which we do not appreciate. There is not a great deal of wind in these fronts, fortunately, so by breakfast on Sunday, I would expect northwest winds about 15 for the Gulf Harbor area and the Opua area, not much. Then, of course, we get the rain associated with these bands, and after dinner, the fronts look to clear the North Island, and it's at that point that the winds are going to shift southerly, and they'll be about 15 knots, 15 knots. Now, those underway aren't going to be bothered much by this depression, I don't think. The trade winds are going to prevail pretty much through the weekend for those north of 30, all thanks to a developing high that's off of Sydney. And that's pushing a very nice ridge eastward. Now, this high advances east, and by this coming Wednesday, which is the 9th, a ridge is going to cover the North Island, and it's going to be pretty strong at about 1030 millibar, 1030 millibar, or HPA. Now, at 25 south, this date, you could expect fresh east to east-southeast winds, probably 20 to 25 knots. Minerva Reef, well, if you're there, you can expect southeast winds about that strength as well. Pretty nice weather, really. Now, last Tuesday, a couple of days ago now, we mentioned that on 11 May, we may see a change. Models were indicating a cold front that was going to extend from New Zealand to between Vanuatu and Fiji. Now, those of you may remember that, whether doing your homework if you haven't left yet. So here we are 4 days later, and the latest runs continue to show a cold front extending north with its parent low. Looks like it'll be about Ogieclue Strait. Furthermore, a second depression is progged for the mid-Tasman. The result of all of this are headwinds to the islands, not very good at all. So this represents over 16 model runs from Tuesday, showing a good degree of consistency, and it's this sort of consistency that's important when you're doing your passage planning. That's why you should start writing down, make a little chart or a graph or something, 3 or 4 days before you actually leave, so that you can check up on the models. Also on or about this date that we're talking about, a second high is found in the Bight of Australia. That's a monster mountain of air. One model has it as 1037, another slightly weaker, but it's still very, very strong, very big high. So we'll have to wait and see if all of this really does develop. I always get nervous when I see big highs like that, and I think you all know now reasons for that. Now, we've had 8 model runs since I first picked this up. So we're starting to see some consistency in the forming of this particular high. Okay, we'll take a quick look at satellite imagery that I got early in the spring, about 5 o'clock. The trough that we talked about up in the islands, that's pretty much over the Nuez now. Brushing Vavao, actually, the southern portion of the frontal band is actually over Vavao. And it goes on then to Wallace, and then it goes between Rotuma and Tuvalu. But there actually is another trough, rather weak, and it runs from the banks to just north of Fiji, just barely north of Fiji. And it's got Rotuma in the middle of these two troughs. So Rotuma's got some clear sky, but whether or not one or both of these troughs make a move in that direction, it's hard to tell right now. What else can we tell you about satellite imagery? Well, that's pretty much it. Winds in Tonga today, again, I'm just going to give a brief overview until next week. We're looking at mostly south-southeast winds, fairly light, 10 to 15 knots, and it looks to be about the same for tomorrow. Fiji, out in the open water, southeasterlies, 10 to 15, and pretty much the same tomorrow as well. And Vanuatu, east-southeast to southeast, about 15 to 20. And Newcal got a little bit more wind than what was reported a few minutes ago, east-southeast, about 15 to 20. And in Newcal, it just depends where you are because of the orographics. You could be in a spot where the winds are incredibly different from the open water out in the lagoon. Now, the Picton yachts. There are a group of yachts down there in the north of the South Island that are wanting to leave, primed and ready to go. My analysis indicates that you should expect the front, the one that's going to be nailing New Zealand this weekend, it should arrive over the yacht club there at 3 a.m. on Sunday, so somebody could wake up and wander down there and see if it happened. It clears Picton by breakfast probably, and it's going to lie over East Cape by around dinner time, so it's going to move through fairly quickly. Now, favorable winds south right through Cook Strait. So in other words, those of you that are heading in that direction, rounding the corner, and then heading up to the islands, those winds through Cook Strait will be very favorable for you. In fact, favorable all the way up to East Cape. Now, East Cape on Monday at, I would say 9, 10 in the morning, I would expect west to west-southwest about 20 knots. So it's a good direction. Then once you clear the Cape, then we're looking at southerlies by dinner, north of the Cape and east of Opua. So that's assuming you're scooting up to the north. And then it looks, believe it or not, like it's okay to Fiji right through about the 12th of May, which is Saturday. So almost not quite a week away. So there is a possible departure Monday, as all of you have planned, around the Cape, run line it to Fiji, and I'd look at an ETA of about Friday the 15th, if possible. The wind should be easterly at 20 south, but headwinds at 25 south. So you need to, if you go, you need to just keep the pedal down and no slowing down to take pictures. Push right through 25 south as soon as you can. Then you could breathe a bit of relief once you get through 25, and you should be okay on the way to Fiji. Those going to New Caledonia, it's a little bit different story. You're likely to have headwinds because the west end of the ridge will be upon that area, and of course that'll have northeast winds. And in a sailboat, that means pretty much headed. I'll cover this Picton business on streaming Monday morning. Apparently that no one's leaving until about 9 or 10 o'clock. Somebody told me that. So we'll give a report Monday morning as to where that front is and what that passage to Fiji is looking at. at that time. So anyway, folks, that's it from me. Any questions, come down.
I think they're all having a peaceful weekend of it. And I forgot to mention Whistler did report, and we really appreciate these early morning reports. They are nearing Savu Savu with east-southeast 10 to 15 with a half a metre swell. It has been a little bit uncomfortable on the trip from Taveuni there, but 40% cloud cover at the moment in 1015. So it seems to tie in with what you're talking about there. But yeah, we do appreciate, folks, those that can get their reports in, because it just allows some confirmation as to the reliability of the various weather models. And we haven't heard from Bright Angel this morning. Bright Angel, anybody awake out there? Gulf Harbour Radio. No, maybe we haven't got communication that far east this morning. All right, well, if there's nothing much more, I will go back to reading the paper, and I am on net control on the ham net this morning at 9 o'clock our time, 2100 UTC, so anybody that's ham licensed can have a chat then on 14315. All right, final call. Anybody else? Okay, and the heat waves got that report down there in Picton. I've just heard on streaming. Thank you for that, Rod. Okay, all right, well, we'll have a good weekend, everybody, and we will be back again Monday morning. Cheers all. Have a very good weekend. The frequency's all yours. All right. Let's turn this on.